How do we look inside of ourselves and find the story that we want to tell?
Well, I think everybody has their way in. Like, for instance, when I was doing the Healing the Hollywood Heart group, I was also doing subgroups of people who had difficulty with their weight or with money or with some malady, some sickness and such. So those are all ways in where you're interested in listening to what your body has to say to you. Whereas maybe you wouldn't on another subject, but if you bring up the subject of money, well, you're all ears. You want to hear about that. So the way in, I think, is the particular thing that tends to elude you. The thing that no matter what, you can be very successful at all other aspects, but darn, you can't get relationships right. And so then we go there and heal that core wound. There's little something that was going on that you have a belief about really early, and you just keep having that belief still stuck in your craw, and then that keeps you from the rest of your becoming.
Interesting. So if we have an investment banker who's always been successful, their screenplay isn't necessarily going to be, about earning money and coming up, because maybe that's not their Achilles heel. It sounds like they've already figured that out.
Maybe so. Maybe they are scared silly to make sure that they always have money come in because of Dad. Dad said you better save your allowance. And if you don't, I'm gonna do whatever to you. So everything shows up in those ways. And also the father issue is a very, very big one, especially in Hollywood, because people come to Hollywood because it's the father. And then they are in relationship to how they were with their father. If they can't get the head of the studio on the phone, well, they were abandoned by Dad. So they're just playing that out on a larger scale. So there's, it's so personal and intimate and quiet and close to your heart. And all you have to do is reveal that to yourself, and then you know everything about yourself, and you know what you can do then to protect those parts or develop those parts or relinquish those parts.
Wow, that's fascinating, because I always thought that too about corporate America. I thought it was almost like you were trying to please a parent.
Please, Dad, yeah.
Yeah, that's fascinating.
Mom, yeah.
Right, so it's like this, and do you think that's why sometimes people on the indie level are like, oh, I hate these suits and all this stuff? It's because it reminds them of a rejecting parent?
Yes, or they reject the parent. They don't want to have anything to do with the rigidity or the tradition. They want to be, free thinking, and so. But it's all just about your fundamental belief systems. It was interesting. Yesterday, I was at the pool, and there was a man. You've seen this where it's like he was totally conked out on the chaise lounge, just, And that's happened to us sometimes too. It's like, well, and where do you go? Where do we go when we completely leave the body? And here's the body is just wunk. And I was watching this, and I noticed that without his belief system, his consciousness in his body was completely different. It was like the calves of his legs were different shape, and his toes and his arm was hanging down. And then then there was a noise, and he came back into the body. But he didn't, how something like you come back in and then you go back out again. So he came in briefly, the whole body completely changed back up, and I could see, look at those where he holds those beliefs were coming back into the body, and then he went back out again, but he didn't go as deeply as he was. He went to a different place, so he was holding his body completely differently, and you could see it. You could see like in his stomach those what I call the emotion bucket, where you hold knots in your tummy since 3 years old, what was going on then, and there it all is, and it's held in the body as trauma. It's interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So then we govern in that way. We're carrying our body and our belief system and all our patterning is there. And so then that's how we are, what we believe, how we're progressing. So if, somebody is corporate or if somebody is indie or whatever the thing is, it's all the mix-up of all the pieces from early on.
How would a writer know that they are writing the wrong story or that they have the wrong premise?
They never have the wrong story. They never have the wrong premise. Because it's all, story is not arena. Like, for instance, they might say that they might be assigned a baseball story. They don't know anything about baseball, so they think this must be wrong, but they're going to take the job anyway. But the story is not about baseball. The story is about this person who has that dad and that mom and those beliefs around that. So you see, story is underneath the arena. It's just told in these areas.
Sure.
But for everybody, there's a kryptonite.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so how can we tap into the right type of kryptonite for that character? Well,
it's just there. You can't help it. It's there, and a lot of times you might not notice, but you're expressing it, and you might not articulate that it's this problem that you've got, but it is. Like, for instance, let's say our hero says he has many girlfriends and he can't keep a relationship going. So then he'll say, oh, well, it's a problem with these girls. But is it? So his kryptonite is within him. It's Sally Kryptonite.
Sure.
That's what he thinks. He thinks it's outside of himself.